There's been quite a few icebergs revolving around Mexico, but there's too many and some are kind of weird. So I made my own, combining the best ones from all of them. You guys seemed to enjoy my last iceberg, so I hope you like this one. On April 26, 1984, the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl exploded, causing the deaths of thousands over the years. But while the rest of the world remembers it as the worst nuclear disaster in history, Mexico remembers it for a different reason. A couple of days after the explosion, radioactive material spread into the atmosphere and formed clouds. In this case specifically, over Ireland. These clouds rained on Ireland's livestock and crops. Following this, Ireland tried selling their milk production from these radioactive cows. They first approached Brazil, who happily denied the milk. Then they talked to Mexico, who gladly took the powdered milk, despite being warned from Brazil. Over the course of 2 years, Mexico purchased almost 70,000 tons of radioactive milk from Ireland. This obviously did not go unseen. Distributors detected strong amounts of radioactive material in their milk supply and informed the government of the issue, which they ignored. Infamously, Mexico's food security and supplier knew their baby formula was radioactive and kept it confidential, and in order to dilute it, mixed it with milk from other sources, which ended up not working. As a result, after 1987, childhood cancer rates went up by 300%. The issue became public, with protests being held. Some companies like Nestle refused to withdraw their products. In the end, the government went mostly unpunished, as the PRI, the ruling party at the time, was known for corruption. In 1970, a test rocket launched from a Cold War military missile site towards a missile range in New Mexico. However, the rocket lost control and traveled to a remote part of Durango, Mexico. The rocket carried containers of radioactive material and had to be cleaned up by removing hundreds of tons of soil from the impact site. However, very quickly, the site became a known spot of supernatural activity. People reported seeing abnormal animals, mutant plants, aliens, and many more. But the most popular legend is that the Zone of Silence is an area where radio signals, compasses, and any type of communications cannot be received, thus being called the Zone of Silence. Andrés Manuel López Obrador, also known as AMLO, was the 65th president of Mexico. Think we know where this is going. According to the book, The Hidden Crimes of López Obrador, AMLO apparently committed several crimes during his youth. He supposedly gave his friend brain damage one day when AMLO was losing a baseball game, and hit his friend on the head with a baseball, which resulted in his friend being in a vegetative state. He also apparently had sex with his uncle's horse. There's not much information on this online, except for a bunch of memes and some snippets of news articles from back in the day. But the story goes that back in 1968, a 15-year-old boy traveled back to his hometown in Tabasco after going away to study. Well, when he came back, he found that his best friend was madly in love with a mare named La Canica, which means marble. The horse belonged to his uncle Lucio, who was not happy when he found out his horse was being violated by the future president. The story was corroborated by one of AMLO's childhood friends, and it seems like Mexico never let the story go. Channel 5 is a Mexican open broadcast network owned by Televisa. The network's lineup mainly consists of cartoons and dubbed foreign shows. It's mainly aimed at children. However, in 2020, the channel would gain traction, especially on YouTube, when its Twitter page began posting strange and creepy videos in the early morning. These clips were short and heavily edited. The incident creeped out thousands of people because these videos were posted usually around 3 a.m. and were usually deleted by 7 a.m. but notably one of these posts was accompanied by the text, Celine. It was referencing a popular urban legend in the Mexican community. In the 90s and early 2000s, Channel 5 would often air a broadcast called At the Service to the Community. It aired around midnight and listed a bunch of missing people and their information. However, in 2001, one missing person stood out among the rest.
Daniel Vélez Ávila. Cualquier informe a los teléfonos de Canal 5. Selene Delgado López, de 18 años, se extravió el 22 de abril en la delegación Álvaro Obregón.
Celine Delgado Lopez. No information was known about her other than her name, age, and the location of her disappearance in Mexico City. The urban legend began when viewers felt very uncomfortable and creeped out from her photo. Children claimed that her spirit haunted Channel 5 whenever her picture appeared, causing the screen to glitch out. The legend terrified a whole generation of kids, when in reality, Celine was just a poor girl who went missing. She was never found, but that didn't stop people many years later when the story blew up on YouTube. When the strange Twitter posts were being investigated, people found a Facebook page belonging to a Celine Delgado. Another legend stemmed from this, with people claiming that they have already been added as her friend, despite not doing so. To make things worse, there was no option to unfriend her. As a result, the page exploded on social media, and this random woman was harassed non-stop, and she ended up privating her page. Octavio Ocaña was a Mexican actor known for starring in the popular television show Vecinos, or Neighbors. Ocaña played the role of Benito for 16 years until 2021. On October 29th of that year, he was driving with two of his father's friends when the local police requested him to stop his vehicle, but Ocaña ignored them. He collided with several vehicles during the pursuit and got on the highway when suddenly Ocaña grabbed a gun and accidentally shot himself in the chin. But the witnesses claimed otherwise, stating that police had ulterior motives to stop him. They shot him and planted the gun in his right hand, even though Ocaña was left-handed. Video evidence was released showing that Octavio was still moving and bleeding out on the side of the road, and on-site reports show that an ambulance was not called when things went south. The case is currently being investigated by the government to look into corruption and inconsistencies with the police story. Octavio's character was written off the show as Benito was pursuing acting against his will and got accepted into a TV show that he actually wanted to be a part of, despite wanting to be a doctor. In his final episode, he called his parents and friends one last time, where everyone said their goodbyes and told him to fly high. The episode ended, but not before one character said, "Octavio, you will always be our Benito." In 2009, Doritos released a commercial in Mexico. It started by a woman walking to a newsstand and greeted the owner, Don Roque, before buying a magazine. But Don Roque insisted she shouldn't call him by his name and instead said,
"Dime vaquero,"
meaning, "Call me cowboy." The girl was then seen walking the streets and living her life as men yelled the phrase, "Call me cowboy" to her in a very suggestive tone. She then called her boyfriend, angrily asking him if he uploaded the video, to which he dismissed her and said, "It's cool, isn't it?" and told her to listen as he played the video on the phone. We then got the full context of what "Call me cowboy" meant, as we heard the woman moaning while her boyfriend said, "Call me cowboy." She agreed and called him cowboy multiple times, followed by more moaning. The commercial became controversial due to Doritos blatantly promoting the harassment of women and the act of sharing private videos without their consent. Thus, the commercial was censored and pulled from television. In 2010, a 4-year-old disabled girl had mysteriously disappeared from her bedroom one night. Her mother had tucked her into bed and placed the pillows in a way where she wouldn't roll over, but the following morning, she was nowhere to be seen. Police searched all over the apartment building and surrounding area to no success. What resulted was one of the biggest media stories in the country. Millions wanted Paulette to be safe. Her mother would go on television numerous times being interviewed right on top of her bed. It wasn't until 9 days after her disappearance that investigators noticed a putrid smell coming from her bedroom. It was there when they found Paulette dead, stuck in between her mattress and the frame, the same bed her mother was interviewed from. After looking through everything, her death was ruled an accident. But people were skeptical. She died on the same night she disappeared, but no foul odor was present until the 9th day. Paulette's bed was made daily as people stayed over during her disappearance. The fact that police dogs couldn't catch her scent and many more reasons had people suspicious of her mother, theorizing that her body was placed there the night before they found her. If you want to see me go in depth, check out Darkest Moments in Mexican TV Part 2. Chalino Sanchez was one of the most popular singers during this time, and still is, being called the King of Corridos, a popular genre of Mexican music. His songs were gritty and were based on his tough upbringing. He rose to fame in the early 90s for playing for several venues in Southern California. But this would only put a target on his back. In January of 1992, Chalino performed at a nightclub in Coachella, California, when a man under the influence jumped on stage and shot at him, striking him 2 times in the chest. Chalino fired back, but missed and killed an innocent bystander. He survived his assassination attempt, but became paranoid afterwards. A couple of months later, he traveled to his home state of Sinaloa to perform concerts against his team's advice. And on May 16th, during a performance, Sanchez was handed a note from someone in the crowd. Immediately he looked worried, but crumpled up the note. It's believed that he was handed a death note, warning him of what would happen to him if he continued singing. After the show, Chalino left the club with his brothers and cousin. His vehicle was pulled over by a group of armed men, who identified themselves as police. They told him that their commander wanted to see him. He agreed and got into one of their cars. The following morning, 2 farmers found his body in a canal, with a blindfold and rope marks on his wrists. He had been shot twice in the back of the head. The people responsible were never identified, but it's believed that he was killed by the cartel. El Pirata de Culiacán was a popular influencer who became famous for getting drunk and doing drugs while being filmed, often making a fool of himself and ranting to the audience unfiltered. He shared his life on social media, often at a party or with other celebrities, but all of this would eventually collapse when he drunkenly insulted El Mencho, telling him to suck his cock. El Mencho happened to be the leader of one of Mexico's most dangerous cartels. Around a month later, he posted a video on his Facebook, sharing his location. And hours later, while drinking at a bar in Jalisco, was shot 18 times by a group of gunmen. They were never identified, but it was believed to be El Mencho's men. Juan Rosales was only 17 years old when he died. In the early 20th century, private performing dances where only men or only women were done frequently. These dances were held in secret so that they wouldn't be targeted in public. While in 1901, one of these parties was held in a private house within Mexico City, filled with 41 men, half of whom wore women's clothing. Authorities heard of the dance, and at 3 a.m., busted open the door to the house. All of them were taken into custody illegally. When news of the raid reached the street, these men were shamed and ridiculed for being homosexual. However, a rumor soon emerged, claiming that there were in reality 42 participants, with the last one being the then president's son-in-law, Ignacio de la Torre, who was allowed to escape. He had multiple gay relationships in the past, but apparently his involvement in the dance was swept under the rug. 19 of the 41 were sentenced to the army and sent to battle. As a result, the number 41 was used in Mexican culture to refer to homosexuality, and for a long time, the number 41 became taboo and avoided. Nowadays, Mexico is much more accepting of gay people. Sergio Rod was a Mexican radio host for the morning radio program Robes, Pajamas, and Slippers in the early 80s. On September 19th, 1985, he started his broadcast like usual. But just 17 minutes into the show, one of the deadliest earthquakes in Mexican history began shaking the building. But instead of evacuating like his coworkers, he stayed on the show, scared but reassuring listeners. The live transmission ended as the building collapsed. When rescuers cleared the remains, Sergio Rod was dead. The audio clip is considered lost media, as many people claimed hearing the broadcast live, but it was probably destroyed when the building fell. In 1968, Mexican armed forces opened fire on a group of students who were protesting the corrupt government. This would come to be known as the Tlatelolco Massacre. Hundreds of students were killed, and the government tried in all of their power to downplay the situation. One of the ways they did that was controlling the media. Many news outlets published papers blaming the students and left out key details. The same could be said on television. There's a popular urban legend that famous journalist Jacobo Zabludowski said the phrase, "Today was a sunny day," upon opening his broadcast on TV. However, no footage or audio of the broadcast has ever been released. The phrase is now a part of Mexican lost media. Jacobo Zabludowski never accepted or denied the rumors, and he passed away in 2015. The city of Tultepec, in the state of Mexico, has one of the best firework industries out there. Over half the city's population is devoted to the production of fireworks. One of the biggest hubs for Mexican fireworks was the San Pablito market, but things would go south in 2016. The cause is unknown, but in the span of a few seconds, thousands of fireworks went off, causing a massive explosion. The market supposedly had 300 tons of fireworks that day, and by the end, the market was completely in ruins. 36 people wouldn't survive, and dozens more were left with burns. In some cases, over 90% of their bodies. I also found a similar case in 1999, when illegal fireworks exploded in a warehouse in the city of Celaya. 72 people died this time. Three film students drove to a vacant house to record a short film. When they were done, they started driving back home, but their car broke down. When they got out to check, 2 trucks surrounded them, and several men carrying rifles got out and kidnapped them. The reason for the stop was that the house where the students were at was a safe house used by the cartel, the CJ&J. The students were then tortured and executed, believing they were members of a rival gang. Afterwards, they dissolved their bodies in acid. Meaning Falcon Strike, El Halconazo was one of the most terrifying events in Mexican history. On June 10, 1971, thousands of people, mainly students, went to the streets of Mexico City to protest against the government for retaliating against the University of Nuevo León, who wanted to propose a law for a joint government. Thousands of people were in attendance, and their goal was to march to Mexico City's Central Square. However, before they could reach their destination, police officers and riot squads blocked the students from passing. In the nearby intersections, a paramilitary group called the Falcons came out of dozens of trucks and vans. The Falcons were composed of youths who were trained to suppress protesters. At first, the Falcons attacked the protesters with bamboo and kendo sticks, which were easily repelled. The Falcons attacked them again, this time using high-caliber rifles. They shot at the students as police took orders to not intervene. The injured were taken to the hospital, but the Falcons followed, scaring doctors and killing any protesters they found inside. In total, 120 people were killed. The Falcons were dissolved a short while after, and the government faced little to no repercussions. On September 17, 2017, an earthquake of magnitude 7.1 struck Mexico. Dozens of buildings collapsed and toppled over as a result, including a private school in Mexico City that would cause controversy. Various reports stated that 3 days after the building collapsed, a girl was spotted in the rubble, barely alive. The Navy, who was a part of the rescue mission, commented that they had heard the girl and even saw her. They worked for hours in the middle of the night to free the poor little girl. Her name was Frida Sofia. This was one of the most popular news stories at the time, as everyone wanted Frida to be safe, and Televisa would capitalize on this, covering the story for 16 hours. But ultimately, at the end of the search, they only found the body of an adult woman. People then started to wonder if the girl was even real, and confused because the Navy reported seeing her and giving her water through a hose. On September 21st, the Navy affirmed that there was never a girl named Frida Sofia. Televisa received a lot of hate for the incident, as they were promoting a fake story, and the rival, TV Azteca, aired an episode of The Simpsons, where Bart faked the story that a kid was trapped in a well. This was similar to another case in 1985, during the aforementioned 8.1 magnitude earthquake. Monchito was a 9-year-old boy who spent the night at his grandfather's house when the earthquake struck, and he was left in rubble. It seemed like all of Mexico mobilized to rescue the poor boy. Volunteers, firemen, artists, engineers, the 2 sons of the then president, even Televisa joined in. Well, they looked for over a week and found nothing but a safe from the property owner. It's believed he fabricated the story so that he would find his safe. The Monsters of Ecatepec is a name given to couple Juan Carlos Hernandez and Patricia Martinez. Juan Carlos had a tough time growing up. He had a single mother who liked to dress him up as a girl and force him to watch her having sex with multiple men. He also suffered sexual abuse by his caretaker, and when he was 10, fell down the stairs, suffering a brain injury. Patricia Martinez was born into a poor and manipulative family. She was mentally disabled, and to make money, she worked as a prostitute. The couple met in 2008. They had 4 children together, and opened a family business where they sold clothing and cell phones. But things would only get darker from here. Over the course of 6 years, the 2 lured and killed 20 victims, mostly female. Once lured, they would sexually assault them and dismember their bodies. It didn't end there. Once in pieces, the couple would cook their body parts and eat them. One of the victims, Nancy Noemi, had a baby which they sold to another couple. They would get caught when police received the tip and found the couple pushing a baby stroller. Thinking it was Noemi's baby, they arrested the couple, but when they pulled aside the blanket, they found a human torso. For their crimes, they received a sentence of over 300 years in prison. The Iguala mass kidnapping refers to the disappearance of 43 students in the city of Iguala. In 2014, the students were preparing to commemorate the anniversary of the Tlatelolco massacre. The tradition was to drive several buses to travel towards Mexico City, but on their way, they were stopped by police who set up a roadblock. Apparently, the orders were from the mayor of Iguala himself. What happened during and after the stop remains a mystery till this day, but several reports were released. According to police, they chased the students because they had hijacked 3 buses. The students, however, told a different story. They were simply hitchhiking. Police then opened fire on the buses, killing 2 students immediately. Eyewitness said that the students were rounded up and forced into police vehicles. The events after are unknown, but theories that the police handed over the students to a gang, tortured, and burned in a mass grave were publicized by the government, being known as the historical truth, despite the story being inconsistent and likely false. 3 of the students' remains have been identified so far. 1 was found in a river in a different city, and 2 were found about half a mile away from a garbage dump in Iguala. And while multiple arrests have been made, the case is still ongoing. There's way too much to cover, so I recommend watching Jorge's video on it. Maria Poblano was a street vendor in Mexico City who sold tamales to support her children. One day, she got into a relationship with Pablo Diaz, and the two fell in love. However, he wasn't what he seemed. He developed a violent and possessive behavior. He took the money Maria earned from selling tamales and used it to bet on sporting events. When Maria called him out on this, he became aggressive and threatened her and her kids. In July of 1971, he took things too far when he abused her children in front of her. This was too much for Maria and hit him in the head with a baseball bat 3 times, killing him. She then dismembered his body with a hacksaw and put his remains in sacks that she used to carry dried corn husks for the tamales. She stored his head inside of a steamer pot for the tamales and left it under her children's bed. She left the bags outside, which were found the next day. Police soon arrested Maria, and she later served 20 years in prison. But the media caught wind of the case and spread a rumor that the flesh and meat of her ex-husband was used to make and sell tamales. While this was never confirmed, the legend spread over the country, and people refused to eat tamales for quite some time. Public shootouts are very common in Mexico, most likely from rival gangs or cartels, so schools are mandated to have shooting drills like the United States. This very thing happened to a school in Monterrey. The teacher told her 4-year-old students to leave their desks and drop to the ground for a shooting drill, hiding the fact that the situation was real. She calmed them down with the song, "If Raindrops Were Made of Chocolate," and recorded her students singing the song. The gunfire ended a while after, and the school remained unharmed, but she published the video on Facebook the next day, and it quickly became viral. It wasn't the first time she had done this. 3 separate times she made her students drop to the ground, telling them it was just a drill, when it wasn't. She described it as one of the most difficult things to do as a teacher, especially with preschoolers. Juana Barraza was a female wrestler, known as the Lady of Silence. She had a strong interest in lucha libre her whole life, and attended many shows after she retired. TV Azteca would always cover the weekly wrestling show at the Coliseo Arena, and while they filmed it, they would always notice Juana Barraza sitting in the crowd, who always stood out from the rest. She always wore her bright red dress and usually sat in silence. Well, it came to a surprise to TV Azteca that she was a former wrestler, so they conducted an interview.
¿Cómo se llama, señora?
Yo soy la señora Juana Barraza Santelli.
¿Cuánto tiempo tiene viniendo a la lucha?
Bueno, viniendo tengo aproximadamente 10 años, pero aparte de eso me dedico a la lucha libre.
¿Ruda o técnica?
Ruda de corazón.
¿Y dónde es más ruda, aquí o en casa?
Ah, pues en los 2 lados.
¿A quién apoyar?
Ah, en la casa a los hijos.
¿Y aquí?
Aquí pues a los rudos.
In the video, she commented how she was a heel and rude, smiling in the process. As it turned out, she wasn't wrong, because a few days later, she was caught strangling an old lady at her house. When police arrested her, they found out she was none other than La Mataviejitas, or the old lady killer, one of Mexico's most wanted serial killers. During her childhood, her mother was very abusive to her and gave her away in exchange for 3 beers. Her new guardian impregnated her. This led Juana Barraza to develop a deep hatred for older women, and from 1998 to 2006 was suspected of murdering 40 old ladies. She was sentenced to 50 years, but in a shocking twist, it was found out that she never wrestled, and her persona, the Lady of Silence, was a lie. It was just a dream. Cartel videos are some of the most disturbing content to come out of the internet. These videos are typically produced and distributed by organized crime groups. Rather than staying hidden, many cartels now document their actions online, specifically on one website, elblogdelnarco.com. It was created by an anonymous person because the government was pretending that nothing was happening. This website contains articles on the drug war. These also include full cartel videos of beheadings, skinning people alive, etc. Many of these videos follow a pattern. Individuals are shown restrained, often forced to speak or confess to crimes. Sometimes, they name rival groups. They plead for their lives or stay silent. By 2011, the website became one of the most visited in Mexico. It's not wrong to say that these videos have become a big part of the internet. Authorities and journalists have warned about the impact of these videos, not only for spreading fear, but also for desensitizing viewers over time. Despite efforts, they remain a persistent part of the internet. In 2019, a video went viral in Mexico showing a woman having a mental breakdown. The story goes that the woman was working at a gas station when a big truck arrived to fill up. The driver gave her a big tip and left. A few days later, the woman saw the same truck and wanted to say hello when she saw something she shouldn't have. Inside of the trailer was a pile of dead children. The clip starts with the woman already going through a panic attack and the people around her telling her to calm down. But she's unable to, understandably so. She started yelling, wanting to go home, while people in the background caught others up, saying the woman saw a trailer that was carrying many children. The rest of the video is more or less the same. Despite the horrifying claims, investigators did not find any evidence of a trailer with dead kids, and dismissed the video as fake. But another story spread soon after, claiming the woman was found dismembered inside of a suitcase in a vacant lot, next to a cardboard sign reading, "This happened to me for seeing what I shouldn't have, and for being a snitch." But this claim was not officially confirmed. Either way, the video seems real. Her panic attacks seem genuine, and in Mexico, it's very likely that's what she saw. Mexico has one of the world's highest female homicide rates. Behind that statistic is a broader and more disturbing pattern, known as femicide, where women and girls are killed specifically because of their gender. They were also trafficked and kidnapped for the sole purpose of sex. While femicides occur globally, the term has become especially associated with Mexico due to both the scale of the problem and the difficulty in achieving justice for victims. One of the most dangerous cities in the world is Ciudad Juarez, where beginning in the 1990s, the disappearances and murders of women drew national and international attention. Many of the victims were young women who were leaving work or traveling through dangerous areas. What makes these cases so bad are the lack of justice towards the victims. Families of these girls often become the primary advocate for investigation, organizing protests and spreading their cause. But even though it's more recognized than ever, the reality hasn't changed, and cases continue to appear. Las Poquianchis were four sisters who ran a bar, Rancho El Ángel. The sisters were born in a rural town in Jalisco. Their father was a strict man who expected them to not wear makeup or talk to any boys at all. If they broke his rules, he would punish them by beating them up, or by locking them away in jail cells, as he was a police officer. As they grew older, their family lost more and more money due to their father, and they collectively decided to open a bar, hoping to make good money. But the opposite happened. The bar lost them even more, and in desperation, allowed prostitutes to use their back room for clients. This made them a lot of money, and they fully converted their bar into a brothel. But they were hiding a much darker secret. When a madam was caught by police on suspicion of kidnapping, she pointed them towards the sisters. As they investigated them, they found on their property 91 dead bodies, 80 of them being women. Tragically, they also found several fetuses. It was found that the sisters would force feed the prostitutes heroin or cocaine to subject themselves to more prostitution. If they became too sick, damaged from repeated sex, or lost their looks. The sisters murdered them. They also killed men who had a lot of money. They were each sentenced to 40 years in prison, and it's believed they murdered up to 200 people. The four sisters have engraved themselves as the biggest serial killers in the country, and they earned a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. I want to give a special thank you to Kevin Korani and Jacob Morg for supporting me on Patreon. You guys are awesome. If you're feeling generous and want to support further, you can follow me on Patreon for as little as $3 a month, where you can get early access to videos and regular updates. But anyways, thank you guys for watching.